Hey guys, hi everyone, 2J's here, what up? I just wanted to make another video because I felt compelled to talk about Jesus, as I always do. I'm talking about God and Jesus, and and I wanted to touch on the topic of freedom. Because I came across a post that I found kind of interesting, and I wanted to elaborate on it. So I switched it a little bit. I do that a lot with a lot of things I come across. Like I'll correct and add a little bit of my belief and opinion and insight to the situation. So it's like, dissent is the highest form of patriotism. That's Thomas Jefferson. Now you look up what dissent, refusal to accept the doctrines of an established or orthodox church, nonconformity. See, so it's like they're saying patriotism is the highest form of nonconformity. So yet they promote patriotism. Oh, be a patriot, patriotism. So what are they really teaching? They're refusing to accept doctrines. That is saying it is patriotic to disagree and quarrel. And nonconformity to beliefs of the church, of an Orthodox church. Just like refusal to accept the doctrines of an established or orthodox church, nonconformity. That's what dissent means. So that's Thomas Jefferson. Yet they make them presidents. Like they'll make people who are like that president. And then like if you look at some of his other quotes, like it's this, he proves himself that he was a liar by his quotes. Like, I have no ambition. Here's the one that proves himself that he's lying. I have no ambition to govern men. It is a painful and thankless office. Says a lying president, speaking contrary to Christ. He proved himself a liar by becoming president, and most likely even before then. So it's like, I have no ambition to govern men. Then why did you? That's a lie right there, because he did try to govern men. It is a painful and thankless office. So like, it's not a thankless office. I'm thankful. I'm thankful that Thomas Jefferson shared some quotes, that he shared some things, that, you know what I mean? But like, that doesn't, he's saying, I have no ambition to govern men, yet says the lying president. Like he's president, he's governing men. So like, here's one of, don't try to do more good than people can handle. That's a Thomas Jefferson quote, apparently. I'm like, do good despite what others can handle. Not supporting good and supporting doing good. Really? Like, should we not do good because devils cannot handle it? That's nonsense. Do good despite what others can't handle. But know your human limits and be wise and discerning in your choices. He who knows best knows how little he knows. Best being God, but God knows best, knows all in the moment and his own. A coward is much more likely to see quarrels than a man of courage. Yes, it takes more courage to not quarrel, but to peacefully stand your ground. So yeah, I agree with that one. It takes more courage to stand there in front of a gun if someone's pointing a gun at you and not quarrel with them and be peaceful rather than to fight back with them and try to kill them. It takes more courage to just stand your ground peacefully, like what Jesus did. These are all Thomas Jefferson quotes, and then just me sharing my thoughts on them. So like, in matters of style, go with the flow. In matters of principle, stand firm as a rock. Your style should be according to your principles. Say if your principle is against cross-dressing, then you shouldn't just go with the flow and cross-dress, even if everyone else is. Only two people will tell the truth about you, your mother and your enemy. False. That's nonsense and definitely not true. Not even our mothers and enemies always know the truth about us. The profession of a lawyer consists in questioning everything, disagreeing with everything, and talking endlessly. No, it doesn't. You don't disagree and keep talking endlessly when law and justice are being served and in your favor. Lawyers are supposed to serve the law, the client, and all with the law, even if that means holding them, the client, accountable. Still serves them to do what's right and serve them. You know, even if they get in trouble, that will still serve them, and they should get in trouble if justice is what is required to improve people and society. So there is nothing more unequal than the equal treatment of unequal people. Unequal people. We're all different, and therefore none are equal. But all have sinned and can be judged as equal in that way if unrepentant and unforgiven by God for not believing in His Son Jesus Christ in the way He made for us. Because we're all equal in sin. We've all sinned. But we're all different, so no one's equal. We're not all equal. Men, women, me, you, anyone. We're different. That's what we have in common. So we share that. We have that in common, that we're all different. But doesn't make none of us are equals. Like talking about quotes about unequal. I get what he's trying to say. He's saying like there is nothing more unequal. There's nothing fair about treating the treatment of people, say, who are breaking the law, to treat them the same as ones who are following the law. You know what I mean? So he's trying to imply that. It's just the way he said it that doesn't make sense. You know, like, I get what he's trying to imply, but, like, these people, it may sound good, but then, like, really, it's, like, a lot of it's false. Like, for the most part, people are more inclined to suffer than to fight to remove the cause of suffering. So, encouraging to fight to remove the cause of suffering. So, fighting is the cause of much suffering. But when people suffer from a disease, they are often more inclined to fight the disease than to just suffer it and give up. The human spirit is inclined to fight and to try to make everything a fight. Human self-preservation is a real thing that most have a hard time resisting and overcoming the way Jesus did. Nothing gives more advantages over others than the ability to remain calm and cool in any situation. God does. The Spirit of God gives more advantages. And God does remain cool in any situation. He proved that, like with Jesus. You know, Jesus remained cool in those situations. You know what I mean? And calm. But, I mean, the only time that people saw Jesus not calm was when he's flipping tables and showing his passion for people breaking, like, sinning and stuff that bothered him in the church. The tree of freedom needs to be watered from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. This is natural fertilizer for it. Nonsense. There you go again, promoting freedom and murder and patriotism. Promoting violence and teaching contrary to God and Jesus Christ again. People are such brainwashed, brain-filth people, like slaves to this corrupt system and oppression of this evil government. These are the kind of people, like, look at the views of these people that they put in charge. The tree of freedom needs to be watered from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. This is natural fertilizer for it. That's like a psycho quote right there, like psychopath people trying to murder people. Like, and that thinking murder is necessary. Totally teaching against commandments and patriotism and rebellion. And laws must go hand in hand with the progress of the human soul. Laws must go hand in hand with the Spirit of God, which is not always the human's soul and the human spirit, according to the gospel of God and His Son, Jesus Christ. So, like, oh yeah, laws must go hand in hand with the human. Like, yeah, so you should adapt laws to humans? No, laws have to go hand in hand with God's commands, like with God. So the Spirit of God, not the spirit of man. Which, yeah, the Spirit of man can be the Spirit of God. You can be given the Holy Spirit and the Spirit of God, but the Bible testifies that not all the humans have the Spirit of God in them. So, laws are written for ordinary people, so they must be based on ordinary rules of common sense. God's laws are written for all people. Ordinary people, we're all different and therefore all unordinary. There's no standard for normal or ordinary. So, once again, he's trying to, equal people, unequal people, ordinary people, and like all these just like things. Like, I get this vibe like they're trying to act like their laws don't apply to us. Like, don't spend money you don't have. There you go. Ideally, there's a pretty deal. Some of his quotes are like, yeah, it's not. I don't rebuke everything about people. You know what I mean? He has some quotes, but then I don't agree with. Just because I may agree with one quote doesn't mean I agree with the person. So it's like, ideally, unless you don't care about money, debt, and being a slave to the lender, the whole system is set up on money you don't have. So most don't have the money they spend and invest in their houses or on their houses and into their homes that they are living in and working towards paying off. Does that mean that they should not invest and work towards paying it off? In an ideal world and position, we wouldn't have to and don't have to. But for most, this is not the reality of their situation and current financial position. To not spend money that you don't have. Not a lot of people don't have the money to spend, where it's a system of credit, and that's set up slave and lender so that they can enslave you and be above you and this and that. So, but yeah, it's still pretty decent advice so that you don't become a slave to the lender. Don't spend money you don't have. You don't want to dig yourself into a major debt, then don't spend money you don't have. I am convinced that the soul of every person rejoices when he does good to another. See, that is why he's deceived. Because he believes the evils rejoice to do good to another, when that is far from the truth, God, and what is testified to by Christ. Devils don't rejoice to do good. So, it is reasonable that everyone who asks justice should do justice. Shouldn't all ask justice and do justice? An enemy generally says and believes what he wishes. So does God, His Son Jesus Christ, and someone who loves you. They'll say and believe what they wish. So it's not just an enemy that generally says and believes what they wish. But yeah, that is true, But an enemy, so it's like an enemy generally is also viewing people as enemies again. But the dead should not rule the living, and that is why he is called the living God, and Christ was raised back to life. See, so it's like I get a vibe like that. Like that's like trying to act like, oh, the dead should not rule the living. So, because Christ died, he shouldn't be in charge. No, he was raised to life, so yeah. The dead shouldn't rule the living, and that's the devils. Evils. The devils are dead. They're living in death and destruction. So God is living in eternal life. They're living in eternal death, torture, and pain and suffering. Pride costs us more than hunger, thirst, and cold. Being proud can cost you your life. and eternal life and others. So yeah, you see them, pride parade, and if you're too proud to ask for food or water when you're hungry, or shelter when you're cold, or heat when you're cold, then that can lead to your death. So that's why it's like, pride can cost us more than hunger, thirst, and cold. Being proud can cost you your life and eternal life and others. An honest man can feel no pleasure in the exercise of power over his fellow citizens. Is there no pleasure in being needed? Is it unfortunate to have to be needed and of service to others? Is there no pleasure in being needed? That's how I would answer that one, because it's like, but I get the saying. He's saying like an honest man can't feel pleasure in the exercise of power over his fellow citizens. So if someone's put in a position of rulership, it's not that you want to have to guide them with the law and with the power that you have over them. You wish that they didn't have to. You know what I mean? And that they could be behaved, and that there didn't have to be, but it's also putting down order of authority. It's a quote that's putting down order of authority. Like, an honest man can feel no pleasure in the exercise of power over his fellow citizens. It's like, that doesn't make sense, because there's pleasure in power, in having power over citizens. Like, you see all these greedy men, they love it. I'm the president of the United. They're obsessed with titles, and they love their power, and they get pleasure from holding this power over people. So that's what he's saying. An honest man can feel no pleasure in the exercise of power over his fellow citizens, because it doesn't cause you pleasure that you have to. You wish that you didn't have to, that you could be equal with them, and that they would behave and this and that, and that it's just, so I get what he's saying. But is there no pleasure in being needed? Is it unfortunate to have to be needed and of service to others? Commerce with all nations, alliance with none should be our motto. This is supporting division instead of peace and unity. This was their president. This is who they put in place for presidents. Because they show some sort of intelligence with some quotations. You know what I mean? But when it comes down to it, a lot of it is nonsense. It is error alone which needs the support of the government. Truth can stand by itself. Why would the government support error instead of truth? It is the government, Christ. Government is Christ. Says the government will fall on his shoulders. Then the true government is Christ and God in Christ. So it is the government, Christ, that needs the support of truth. Truth being God. So we can still need what we have and have what we need. So you could still have something. You could still have something and still need it. Like, say if someone comes to borrow something from you, but you need it, like some food, and you're like, I have food, but I need it though. So you can still need what you have, and you can still have what you need. You know what I mean? But it is error alone which needs the support of government. If you think about the wording on that, so what the government needs to support error? No, the government should be supporting truth. So the way he's worded it is error alone. So we need to correct error, is what he's trying to say. It is error alone which needs the support of the government. Truth can stand by itself. But so he's trying to address error, and that you need to support those who err. But the way he said it, it's like, that doesn't make sense. It is error alone which needs the support of the government. That's like saying the government needs to support error instead of truth. So the government needs to support truth to correct the error. Just worded odd way that he said it. It doesn't make sense to me anyway. I get what he's trying to imply though. The government needs to correct errors. But he's saying support error. And then I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. Opposite of Jesus again. I hold it that a little rebellion now and then is a good thing, and as necessary in the political world as storms in the physical. Yeah, like, rebellion is sin, lawlessness, and never a good thing. The day rebellion is necessary will be the day devils, the evils, are in charge. God is always in charge. It's promoting rebellion, and war, and violence, and devilry. Rebellion. Saying that rebellion is necessary. If people didn't rebel in the first place, and Satan didn't rebel, there wouldn't be a need for people to be rebelling against evil oppressors and things like that. So they're trying to make rebellion necessary by keeping things corrupt. So they're trying to suck you into war and rebellion. Oh, freedom and rebellion. The only security of all is in free press. The only security of all is God and righteousness. They are trying to make press God. So, like it says, money will not save you in the day of wrath, only righteousness will deliver you from death. So there's only security in God. If God wants you to be secure, you'll be secure. Like, but he's saying, like, the only security of all is in free press. So he's saying, like, it's so important to be able to share and speak. So he's connecting freedom to press again, and he has a couple quotes that do that, but it's trying to make press like God, basically, like put the importance of press. Our liberty depends on the freedom of press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. Freedom of the press is the courage to speak the truth despite fears of devils, the evils, consequences. Be willing to speak up, step up, and act according to God, good, love, regardless of the consequences of that, of them putting you to death for it. So it's like, press is basically what you speak. Like, they try to control what we speak and think. That's them trying to control press. So I guess, get what he's saying here, our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. So you can't limit the press. Oh, you're not allowed to say that, or else that's being lost. That's not freedom to speak. So he's promoting freedom of speech, which I agree with. I get what he's saying. Like, you need that. Like, that's what these evil beings try to do. They try to control what you can say, and this and that, what you can share, and sharing beliefs and opinions and things like that. You know, they've done that to me on YouTube. I addressed it in my righteous anger video on here, where they're trying to control what I say and speak and share with people. So, but yeah, so I agree with what he's saying, but still, it's kind of putting putting the focus on the press, and giving power to the press, and instead of God. So, liberty, the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. The state of not being imprisoned or enslaved. A right or privilege, especially a statutory one. The personification of liberty as a female figure. Like the Statue of Liberty, they're trying to say, like, the power or scope to act as one pleases. So, like, that's liberty, and they promote liberty all the time, which is like, liberty. Like, I get it, like, like liberals and independence and self-government and things like that. Like, so it's promoting freedom again. The state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. So liberty, I don't promote liberty unless their liberty is in line with God's laws and God's teaching. Because that's like trying to say that, people should have the liberty to believe what they want to believe and do what they want to do, free from being oppressed. And some people who do evil would feel that the good are oppressing them by stepping up and stopping them. So they'd be like, you're taking away my liberty and my freedom of belief and this and that. And yeah, God doesn't do that. God educates. He gives people the free will to choose for themselves. Then he educates you, gives you the warnings, then gives you and lets you know the consequences if you choose right and if you choose wrong, and then lets you choose. So he doesn't. That's not oppressing you. Oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. Yes, it is. When it comes to evil, he's oppressing. He doesn't allow evil to have authority. Their way of life, behavior, and political views. He allows them to, but not free of consequence. So its liberty promotes the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political view. So it's promoting freedom. Liberty, freedom. Yeah, as long as it's in line with law, so like then. But I always get a vibe that they promote this stuff to trick people into patriotism, violence, war, rebellion. When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. See? So here's another one that you see often where people be like, like they also put it on like that other quote where they're like, evil thrives when good men fail to act. So it's saying that you're forced to act. If you're a good man, it's your fault that evil is evil. Just because you don't step up and join in with it and join them in doing it, in doing so. So that basically would be accusing Jesus of not. He's evil. What? Because he failed to step up and partake. No, he acted accordingly and did step up and act accordingly by not partaking and fighting and resisting. So when injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. Yeah, like it was his duty to resist the evil by not getting involved. But a lot of people take this like, when injustice is happening, you have to step up and go to violence to stop it. And yeah, like you have to use laws there so that we use necessary force to witness who's sinning, who's not being lawful, and who is being harmful to people, and then we use the law to legally stop them. So we can tell. We use the law to see who's sinning, who's not, who's right, and who's wrong. But when injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. So how many men have broken the law and been tricked by just it was my duty to do that. So like. There's executioners who have beheaded people because they're just doing their duty, breaking God's commandments. So they've been tricked into thinking that their duty is to break commandments, to go to violence, do things like that. So it's like, injustice is when evil goes unchecked and tricks you into thinking something is legal that is being permitted when it is not. Injustice is never law, and resisting evil is always duty. For it is written, fear God and keep his commands, for this is the duty of all. So it is your duty to resist evil and injustice, but in the way doing that doesn't mean involve breaking commandments. It means saying no, and then leading by example and not joining them in their violence and wickedness, as Jesus did. Tyranny is defined as that which is legal for the government but illegal for the citizenry. So that's called hypocrisy. That's called hypocrite. That's not tyranny. Actually, it is cruel and oppressive government or rule. A nation under cruel and oppressive government. Cruel, unreasonable, or arbitrary use of power or control. Rule by one who has absolute power without legal right. So similar to absolute power, dictatorship, undemocratic rule, reign of terror, totalitarianism, fascism, oppression, suppression, repression, subjugation, enslavement, authoritarianism, high handedness, imperiousness, bullying, harshness, strictness, severity, cruelty, brutality, ruthlessness, injustice, unjustness. So it's the opposite of democracy and liberality. And I skipped the first one. Similar to despotism, absolutism, autocracy. Autocracy. Which sounds like auto crazy. Autocracy. Or oddocracy. Oddocracy. Auto crazy. So absolute power. So no one can have absolute power as long as God exists. Because God has absolute power and shares power with his son and children. Only God has the legal right to rule and give the legal right to who he chooses and sees fit to rule by serving in love God. So there's no one who has the legal right to rule unless given it by God. So that's the thing. Rule by one who has absolute power without legal right. So it's saying someone who has the power of a situation when they're not legal in doing that. So that's tyranny, like a tyrannical ruler. But he's saying tyranny is defined as that which is legal for the government but illegal for citizenry. No, that's called hypocrisy. But yes, governments that partake of hypocrisy are tyrannical. So that's basically what he's saying. But I mean, tyranny isn't defined as a government that breaks laws that it makes. That's called hypocrisy. So, but yeah, I get what he's saying, Tyranny is defined as a nation under cruel or oppressive government. Actually, it is cruel and oppressive government or rule. Cruel, unreasonable, or arbitrary use of power or control. So, the most valuable of all talents is that of never using two words when one will do. It is a talent, but maybe not the most valuable. There are a lot of talents, a lot of valuable talents. I was bold in the pursuit of knowledge, never fearing to follow truth and reason to whatever results they led. I like that quote. Yeah, it's good to be bold in the pursuit of knowledge and not fearing to follow the truth and reason to whatever results they lead to. So it's like, yeah, it's a good quote, If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. And that's the thing, like freedom. So like if a nation expects to be ignorant and free while they're in society, like civilization's not free. Like you have to earn your living, work, this and that. So, if a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. He's saying you're in a civilization, so like you're expecting freedom in a civilization. That's like a contradiction in itself. You're expecting to be free in a civilized society that has law, where you're not allowed to be free from law. Not even one thing will be removed from law until it says that God's gospel has all been accomplished and heaven comes and the separation of good from evil and all that. So you're promoting freedom in a society that society's not based on freedom. It's not based on, you're free. It's based on law. Do not bite at the bait of pleasure till you know there is no hook beneath it. So, but everyone loves pleasure. It says things in the Bible about that. Those who love pleasure will go to destruction, and who love wine will be poor, and this and that, and like just things that just clearly false and don't make sense on earth. Like according to everyone who loves pleasure is looking for pleasure and indulging in pleasures, because it is pleasing and being pleased. But becoming hooked on pleasure, being pleasing and pleased, can lead to bad addictions and destruction. It should be our pleasure to please God. So if you're like, yeah, everyone loves pleasure, but when you become addicted to pleasing others and being pleased, and you're addicted to pleasure, that can lead to destruction. Like, say if you find it pleasing to do drugs, then you can get addicted, and that can lead to your destruction. So indulging in those pleasures, like fornication, you love the pleasure of fornication, and it can lead to getting disease. You know what I mean? So I get what he's saying. Do not bite at the bait of pleasure till you know there is no hook beneath it. Saying, like, do not partake of pleasure that unless you know that pleasure won't lead to destruction. So, and get you hooked and addicted. It's saying, don't bite at the bait of pleasure till you know it's not going to hurt you. So, but when it comes to people and partners, there's no way of ever knowing that they won't hook you and hurt you. So it requires trust and taking a chance and chances. So if you live by this quote, you would never and should never take a chance on someone, because there's no way of ever knowing that. But I still find this quote interesting, because it's still giving advice as far as like when with like say drugs, you don't partake of drugs that unless you know they won't hurt you. You know what I mean? It's an interesting quote, and see, I like some of his quotes, but so those are just a few. I just wanted to share those ones of Thomas Jefferson, because he was a president. He's put in positions of rulership. Yet some of his quotes are nonsense and very, he's got some good quotes, but then there's some where it's like, you got to think for yourself, people. And like some of these people and men who come out with these quotes, like they're manipulating, and they're easily manipulating society and people into throwing their lives away, like patriotism and rebellion, a little bit of rebellion here and there, and like, so yeah, there's a little. That's the problem with Hollywood and government and stuff. It's like, yeah, there's little bits that they'll share, like a little bit of truth or an intelligent saying here and there, give a little bit of guidance here and there. That's like, oh, that was pretty intelligent. Oh, so everything that this guy says must be intelligent. Well, you should put him in a rulership position. You know what I mean? So it's like they'll give you a little bit of truth to get your guard down, and so that you think that they know what they're talking about and that they're to be followed, And then, but then if you look into the overall attitude and deeds and what they're about, they go the wrong way. They're about like idolatry and rebellion and war and patriotism and against commandments. Things contrary to Christ is what they're promoting. All one needs is God. Love, and a grasp of God, and faith in Him and His Son Jesus Christ. All else is secondary. That's why it says, first seek the kingdom, all these other things may be added to you. It's saying everything else is secondary. Put God first. And that's why I said, I have another quote that says, like, love God and yourself first, to love each second. So that's one of my quotes, a couple of my quotes. But our actions and deeds should speak for us more than words do. So, and Thomas Jefferson have said similar things. The sermon should be our lives, not our words. It's saying actions should speak louder than words, and actions do speak louder than words. So it's like he has a few quotes, but that doesn't mean that that people should eat up everything that they say, you know what I mean, and that they should follow this man's ways into death. People are such brainwashed, and I say brainwashed even though they're brain filth, because wash implies cleaned, filth implies that their minds are made dirty. So people are such brain filth slaves of this corrupt system of oppression and evil government that they think that anyone who isn't and that doesn't want to be anymore, that resists and speaks up about it, is the problem. They're all like the agents of evil in the Matrix. The truth is that you've never been free. We've never been free in your life. Because human life isn't free. You got to pay for things, and you're stuck in a system that you may not agree with, but you got to live by it anyway. It's controlled by lawless, satanic oppressors disguised as good guys, but who enforce hypocritical laws that manipulate humanity to serve and fit their corruption and evil lifestyles. They want you to rebel and do evil instead of choose to serve God, love God in love and righteousness. So the gospel doesn't say we will never have freedom. It testifies that all evil will be destroyed, and that those who believe in God, love, and in His Son, Jesus Christ, will get to be with Him and them in heaven. But that doesn't mean that those in heaven will ever be free and have freedom to do evil, whatever they wish, and what is against God and love. So the gospel is a gospel about being free in love, which is God. Being free in love, God. Not freedom of evil and the freedom to do evil and things against God, love, ourselves, and others. It testifies that all who do evil sin, so like evil and sin are the same thing, who do evil, sin, are slaves to evil, sin, and aren't free. So there is only freedom in love, God, the love of God. So I believe in freedom in love, God, but not in freedom of evil. I don't believe in freedom of evil, so at all. So once again, I believe in freedom in love, God, in God's love, but not in freedom of evil, freedom to sin and break laws. So because we are not free to sin and do evil, only to love and be of God, we aren't truly free. We aren't. So that is not freedom. That is not freedom. That is being given the choice between obedience to God or condemnation. So therefore, it is dictatorship for good, love, God, and the greater good of all, which I totally agree with and support 100%. Evil should not be permitted and have the freedom to do evil, and evil should not be permitted and freedom to do evil should not be permitted. So therefore, I believe in God, not freedom. And the reason, so this whole freedom, and we want freedom. So freedom is basically rebellion. Freedom to be able to do whatever you want. That's what the devils want. They want to be evil and hurt and not have any consequences and be free and this and that. So that's the gospel of the devil. So freedom. Even Adam and Eve weren't free to touch the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So evil is forbidden. So that's the gospel. So Proverbs 14:12. There is a way that appears to be right, seems right to people, but in the end, it leads to death and destruction. So freedom may sound good and right, but what is it really promoting? What it's really promoting is rebellion. Evil and devils, the evils, want freedom and to be free to do evil and hurt. So here's a few quotes that I find these quotes, and these widely accepted quotes that people will be like, oh, it's so true, and they don't even think about it for themselves. So I'll go through quotes and I will give insight from my perspective on these quotes, and a lot of the times I'm like, that's nonsense. So here's Thomas Jefferson. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. So he's basically saying, if someone was going to make you a slave, he prefers to go to fight that and be in danger, So dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery, just complying. That's the opposite of Jesus, contrary to Christ. So like once again, Proverbs 14:12, there's a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death and destruction. Or King James Version, there's a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. So it may seem and sound all good, oh, dangerous freedom, or oh, freedom, but really, what is it promoting? It's promoting the opposite of what Jesus did. Jesus was peacefully enslaved and thrown in prison to prove that he was of God and not afraid. So here's a couple more quotes. Sometimes you can solve a problem by avoiding it altogether. Like, such as war. Say if it's like, oh, there's a war, let's all go fight. That's causing the problem. So sometimes you can solve that problem by avoiding it altogether. You get together and you avoid going to war. You know what I mean? You discuss these things. So it's like a clever person solves a problem. A wise person avoids it. That's Albert Einstein that said that. So, and that's in some cases, like only in some cases, in certain cases, I think avoiding a problem can and does solve it. But sometimes avoiding a problem can only make it worse. Jesus used discernment and good judgment, prayer, and God's counsel. He both avoided problems and solved them at times, and I think he was both wise and clever. I'm not pro-war, but sometimes facing problems, taking on problems, and solving them is necessary. Jesus didn't run from problems, he faced them with courage. It is up to us how we view problems. We can view them as challenges and opportunities for solutions and growth if we try to look at them and face them with a positive perspective and attitude or not, whether we do that or not. War does not decide who is right, but who is left. That's George Bernard Shaw that said that. It's a good play on words. It's a good quote and an interesting. I found that interesting. I like that quote. I'm glad he shared it. But the Bible says the goats, which are described as satanic creatures, the goats, even though it's just a metaphor, so like goats themselves, like the animals, they're just goats. But the Bible just says the goats will be left, but they're going to dread that they're left and want to die in the end. So it's saying they're going to be stuck in caves, and when the wrath of the Lamb and the wrath of God and His Son comes on the earth, they're going to be hiding in these bunkers and these mountain caves and things like Area 51 or all these military bases that they have underground where they probably keep all these blood sacrifice children and breeders and all this nonsense. They stack up all their food and their mansions and palaces and all this, but in the end it's saying that they're going to be hiding away, but they're going to be living in fear, and God's going to remove death and all that, and they're going to be terrified of the punishment that's coming to them, of going to hell and all that, and facing the wrath. So it says they're going to suffer. So being left isn't always a good thing. So war does not decide who is right, but who is left. So I found that interesting. I wanted to share insight on that. Here's another George Bernard Shaw quote. Patriotism is a conviction that a particular country is best in the world because you were born in it. See? Complete. It's true, right? Like, people will be like, gotta be patriotic to your country. Oh, this is the best country in the world. Why? Because you were born there? Meanwhile, it's all run by the exact same satanic government that are all in league with Satan, promoting all evil. So it's like it's nonsense. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. So the world government, yeah, it's satanic, and it's being ruled by Satan and the oppressive devils and things like that. But really, it says that God's in control, and that says the kingdom of earth. All power and authority on earth and in heaven has been given to me, Jesus said. So he has authority on earth and in heaven. So really, it's being run by Jesus and by God. But they're being allowed to do their own will for the moment, so that people can see who's right and who's wrong in the situation. That this is not the way. That this is not the way. Look what it leads to: murder, pedophilia, craziness, all this satanic teaching and stuff. It's all nonsense, and it leads to suffering. God's way, yeah, he had to endure that suffering, and you have to endure that suffering that will come upon you from these devils attacking you, but it leads to eternal life. In the long run, it's going to lead to heaven, right? So, but it's like, patriotism is a conviction that a particular country is best in the world because you were born in it. That's so true. Like, people are being, oh, this is the best country in the world. Why? Because you were born there? Like, that's nonsense. Like, so I thought that was a funny quote. You'll never have a quiet world till you knock the patriotism out of the human race. And it's true. Patriotism is brainwashed nonsense. That's why they're always promoting freedom. Gotta fight for freedom. Gotta fight. Go give up your life. And it's like, they're buying young men and women and they're buying their lives and getting them to throw their lives away for money. That's why they starve, oppress people. Then they offer them money to go to war and for prostitution and things like that. Like, they'll oppress you till you become desperate, then offer you money to go the wrong way. And many people fall into their traps. So war is for suckers. The only war that is necessary is if God commands us to step up and be his hand in serving justice and stopping evil. Other than that, the war is for suckers. Brainwash, brain filth, easy manipulated, easily influenced, and easily bought suckers. So they try to act like this, like in the quote in Wayne's World, like the guy who played Al Bundy or whatever and Married with Children. Why is it if a man kills another man in battle, it's called heroic, yet if he kills him in the heat of passion, it's called murder? That was a quote from Wayne's World, and Al Bundy in Wayne's World or whatever. And then, when really, that's some more brainwash. It isn't heroic to kill, even in the heat of passion or on battlefield or whatever. It's still murder and breaking God's law, commandments. So that's them trying to trick you that, oh, it's heroic, like, oh, we should honor soldiers, they're such heroes. Oh, lest we forget. More like best we forget. Why do people keep dwelling on past war and quarrels that led to death and destruction and keep honoring it, the violence, when it's the opposite way of Christ? It's nonsense. They just want to believe that their deceived loved ones that are passed on, their grandpas and all their ancestors were what, right in raising up and doing violence for being deceived and breaking commandments and being bought. That's nonsense. So, like, it's all distractions. It's all distractions in order to get you to focus on and take up their quarrels instead of our own. Manipulation. They're manipulating man into doing their will and focusing on their problems instead of, like, anytime there's an issue that people address, like, oh, we're gonna freedom convoy with the truckers, and they're finally starting to make it seem like they're starting to make some ground and this and that, and taking up issues that are, on their terms and this and that, and then we got a war in Russia and Ukraine are now going to war, and Canada and his allies, and we got to give aid to Ukraine. So they're like trying to distract Canadians and people in the world into a next conflict instead of realizing that they're not doing anything to solve these discussions diplomatically. They're just trying to distract you again and get you on another train of thought, so that you don't step up, organize, and actually serve justice, use necessary force to arrest those who are breaking laws in place and oppressing people. So, and then also they're trying to give hope, freedom. So it may seem right that they're promoting freedom, like the trucker convoy and all this, but still, like, that's the opposite of the gospel. The gospel tells you to submit to these authorities and leave wrath to God, and then it basically says and that doesn't make sense to people because they're like, saying again, it's, no, you can't just let the wicked be wicked. No, you don't. You use the law and necessary force to arrest them and stop them. But then that's the thing. So, but the gospel of Jesus Christ isn't to do that. Jesus didn't do that. He let them arrest him and then went to persecution and death. And that's what it tells you to. And then go to resurrection. So that's the gospel. Yeah, so these people that think they're serving God, freedom and this and that, and it's like I said in the video, Freemasons and Braveheart, freedom, and trucker convoy and all these freedom, freedom. We've never been free. Human beings have never had the freedom to make whatever choices they want to. The gospel isn't about freedom to do evil and whatever you want. It's about obedience to God and love and service of God and love. So that's the gospel. Anyone who's preaching nonsense against that, that's contrary to the gospel. So that's, so people don't like to suffer, though. And they don't want to have to prove that they are of God by suffering. It's a hard thing to do. You know what I mean? But still, it's like we have our own. It's distractions. It's all distractions in order to get you to focus on their quarrels instead of your own. Instead of focusing on, so you're focusing on the logs in their eyes instead of the speck in your own, kind of thing. Or you're focusing on the speck in their eyes instead of the log in your own eyes. So that's what they're trying to get you to do all the time. So we have our own problems to focus on instead of theirs. You know what I mean? Everyone's got their own sins and vices to focus on and try to improve on, instead of getting wrapped up in others and their brainwash and devils and going to violence and their wicked ways. So I just wanted to share that because there's a lot of truth in those quotes, you know what I mean, about patriotism and war, and it's all nonsense. It's all deception. It's all distractions to try to get you to throw your life away. They're trying to buy you to go to violence. And they do that to the young men and women so that they can get all the young men that could challenge their rule, actually organize, step up, and stop them using necessary force. They'll make them all against each other, kill each other, and then they'll pick up the crumbs and buy the women and continue living their wicked lifestyles with all the outcome of it. So that's what happens. And anyone that's a sucker enough to fall for this, they're going to fall for it. So anyone who doesn't live by the word of God and Jesus Christ and that instruction falls into destruction. That's the gospel. So I'm just trying to spread the gospel and help you not so you don't do that. And that's why you see the Cinderella template all the time. Oh, poor girl, prince comes along, these royal families come along and just sweep them away from their life of poverty because they give the ruler, these wicked rulers have all the money to buy the women. And so they try to come off like they're like the saviors of these poor women and this and that. Meanwhile, they're the ones who are manipulating and stealing and doing all these crazy murders and things like that. So it's like, it's kind of it's similar to like the story of David in the Bible. Like he like gets with the man's wife, sends her husband off to war to be killed, and then takes her husband. And then God saw that and punished him for that. They lost their baby and. There was consequence for that, you know what I mean? And it's just like in the movie The Man in the Iron Mask, Leonardo DiCaprio, and he steals the guy's wife, sends him off to war to be killed, you know what I mean? That's what these beings do. So it's all nonsense. It's all trickery and deception to buy the women and men their lives, to buy their lives. So to buy our lives, to buy your lives. It's all money manipulation to control you with money and buy your life with money and get you to throw away and break commandments for money. So that's why it says you can't serve money and God. You can't serve both. You have to choose. I don't care about money. I'm going to serve God and the commandments, even if it leads to me being broke, poor, and oppressed, suffer, and murdered. And then resurrected, and that's the gospel. And a lot of people, they talk the talk, but they're not willing to walk the walk when it comes down to it. It's not an easy thing to do. Even Peter, it's a natural human fear, self-preservation. Peter pulls up his sword. I'll die with you to Jesus and this and that. Peter, put away your sword. And he's like, no, you won't. You're going to deny me 3 times. Like, no, I won't deny you. And then, boom, they put him in a situation where, here, oh, that's a follower of Jesus. And then they're going to execute him with Jesus. And he rejects him 3 times. And then he realized, oh, Jesus did know me even better than I know myself. He knew. So the flesh was weak. The spirit was willing, but the flesh was weak. That's a natural fight or flight response to either fight or flight and leave and try to preserve your life. Most people, it's a natural human response to try to preserve their life, self-preservation. But Jesus And eventually Peter gave up his life for the gospel and for Jesus, so he was given another shot. He was forgiven and given another chance. And so that's the thing, you know what I mean? But that's the way it is. So I just wanted to share this. So I'm in the body of Christ, and so the Christ in me rebukes war and violence, because I walk the walk. I do my best to not go to violence and war. So that's what I do, because the scriptures say, Isaiah 2:4, and he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. So let's cut to the chase and get to this part already. After last century, like 1900 to 2000, 1901 to 2001, we should know better by now, and know better, play on words like know, K-N-O-W, and N-O, better. We should know better by now. After World War I, World War II, 9/11, all these violence, war that leads to death, terrorist attacks, all this nonsense. And it's, whether who's behind it or not. It's whether it's the American government that was responsible for 9/11, or whether it was Iraq government and terrorist attack. Either way, it's all terrorism. Violence is terrorism. Going to war and violence is contrary to the gospel of love and God and his commandments. So that's all terrorism. There's nothing patriotic about it. Patriot. No, here. There's nothing heroic about patriotism. Nothing. That's nonsense. That's thinking that your country is right because you were born there. Meanwhile, so you can what? You justify your evil deeds and your actions because you're the good guy, they're the bad guy? No, you're proving that you're breaking commandments and that you're a brainwashed, easily manipulated sucker. So that's why I rebuke this kind of stuff. It's like, let's cut to the chase already and get to this part already. You know what I mean? Because it's like you'd be better off doing this, fulfilling the scriptures and prophecies, instead of Russia and Ukraine are at war, or war is coming, and war this and that. Canadians got to get involved and give aid. You'd be better off taking your guns and swords and turning them into plowshares and pruning hooks. Dropping your weapons and turning them into useful tools for food. You'd be fulfilling the prophecies that we need to be fulfilled for actual peace to come, and the rule of God and love and all that, and freedom in God and love. So you'd be better off doing that. So, anyone, that's what I advise you to do. Anyone who has guns or swords or any kind of weapons, beat them into plowshares and pruning hooks. Fulfill some prophecies, why don't you, instead of the evil prophecies. But those are some of the prophecies too. People will go to war, there will be this huge war over Jerusalem, so that's going to happen regardless. There's going to be these random people. It says, brother will they will fall each by the sword of their own brother, and in that day I will make you like a signet ring, and here I am with a Jesus Christ ring that has my name in it, a signet ring showing that God's put me in this place to speak these things, to put me in a position of authority to do this and speak to you. And what's going on? They're all going to end up falling and dying by the sword of their own. They're going to die by the hand of their own brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? So here it is. It's being fulfilled right before your very eyes. And what can I do but do my best to warn the ones who are willing to listen, and then you sadly, or guess it's not that sad, if they choose to go to death, they choose to go to death. So you're just watching the word come to pass, and you get to choose your part in it all. What you want to do, in it all. But also God chooses your part in it all. You know what I mean? But it takes cooperation with God. So the gospel has to do with, it says, he calls, the one scripture there, it says he's called those who he foreknew who are predestined for his work and all that, like that scripture, like. But I don't believe in destiny. I believe in choice. We have choice. So like, yeah, he knows his servants that he chooses. He uses who he chooses because he knows their heart. He knows that they're fit to serve because they choose to. But that doesn't mean that you're destined because like say like, oh, God chose me. That still takes me to choose God and cooperate with his instructions to me. If I don't, that doesn't mean I'm destined to go to heaven if I reject doing what I'm called to do by him and go the opposite way. So I'm not predestined to go to heaven. I have a choice to answer God calling me or to not. So really that's why it says those who he foreknew. He knows our hearts, so they are predestined to do certain work for him and stuff like that. But that's not promoting destiny. It's still promoting choice. That he knows his servants and he chooses them and then gives them work to do. But it's still up to them whether they choose or not. Like look at Jonah, you ran, and then God basically compelled him, putting him in a whale, all that, the story. So it's like he didn't have much of a choice. No, he still could have, and God would have just kept hitting them. Who knows? But there are stories of servants where God tells them and then they don't listen and they go to death, like Saul. Saul, go do this and do that, and then he tells him what to do and he rejects, and then he ends up going to death. You know what I mean? So there's ones like that. There's tons of. So it takes your cooperation to answer the calling of God that he's calling you to the gospel, the peace and loving and serving and whatever he directs you to do in love. He said, if you have to carry a card in your pocket or pass on your phone proving you injected a drug into your body to gain access to grocery stores, receive medical care, or to freely move about society, then you no longer live in a free country and you are no longer sovereign over your own body, and that should concern everyone regardless of political party or medical choices. So I got rid of the regardless of political party or medical choices because this is concerning medical choices. So I mean, it doesn't, I don't see that making much sense. Regardless of medical choices, this should concern everyone and this and that. It's like, this is concerning medical choices. So I didn't understand what they're talking about there or what political party has to do with this at all. I know they're saying regardless of medical and political. I just didn't feel that was a fitting, that's kind of like a pointless thing to add to the end. You know what I mean? I felt it more important to point out that it's biblical prophecy being fulfilled here. Because it's described in the Bible prophecy that this is a tactic of evil, that they will do this in the end times and this and that, right? So I just didn't see the relevancy of how they ended that, because politics and medical choices, that the whole thing is concerning medical choices, you know what I mean? That's so regardless of medical choices, that doesn't make sense to me. Regardless of this should concern you regardless of medical choices. This is all concerning medical choices. So that's not regardless of medical choices. They're just basically saying whether you vax or not, you're supposed to care that they're trying to do this. I get that, you know what I mean? It's just the way they worded it, regardless of medical choices, this is all concerning medical choices. So it's not regardless of medical choices. So, but I get what they're saying, you know what I mean? But they're saying regardless of how your political party, your political stance and beliefs, or whether you choose to follow and get vaxxed or not, this should concern you that they're trying to steal your free will choice over your own body, of what to put in your own body. You know what I mean? But they've always done that, so it's it's like welcome to the mental hospital. You know what I mean? That's what they do. Like you can go to a hospital, they can try to get you on a form, lock you up in a mental ward, and force you onto their drugs. You know what I mean? Even if you're just that's what happened to me. I went and reported tried to seek help and counsel on the religious things that were happening in my life, and they traumatized me even more. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's why I needed a Christian counselor that even believes in half the things that I'm going through to do with God. Like, I'm like witnessing to God and devils and all these things. Like so of course that would sound crazy. It's meant to sound crazy when you say, oh, I've seen this person get possessed. That's why devils possess people and say weird, creepy crap to people, so that when you try to tell someone, they'll be like, yo, this dude's crazy. He's talking about God and devils possessing someone and this and that. It's like that, because that kind of stuff can scare people. You know what I mean? But that's reality. Like, I have witnessed things to do with God and devils being real and existing. Like, I've witnessed someone get possessed in my life before and speak to me as a devil. Like, the devil made it very clear, whatever devils it was in them. It was in my brother one time, and he was not sober, and he said things, and then he posts weird things. He said things like, we are legion, which that's what the devil said to Jesus back in the day. He's, because apparently that's the slogan or something of that one group, I forget what they call themselves. They wear the mask, and Anonymous or whatever they're called. I don't know if it is or not, but I think that's where it's from. But either way, so I just wanted to point this out, that it's like, yeah, that's basically what happened to me. And it's like, I went to seek help for trauma and spiritual happenings that were happening to me, and they betrayed my trust first chance. I was telling them, like, the scriptures. Like, I'm like, it says, be of sober mind, to the devil's trying to get you like a hungry lion. Like, so it tells you to keep a clear mind, free of like drugs and substances, as clear-headed as you can be. And that's what I was trying to do, and yet they're trying to force me onto drugs that are going to cloud my mind and confuse my body and do who knows what. So I was like, no, like, I'm rejecting that based on principle. I'm talking to you logically here. This is the truth to me. This has actually happened to me. So just because you don't believe me or understand what I'm saying, or it scares you, that doesn't mean that gives you the right to force a drug on me. It's just like right now, just because you're scared and you don't put your faith in God, that God's going to keep you safe from whatever germs that are floating around all day, every day, you're vulnerable to catching disease or dying or this and that. That's up to God. If He wants you to take your life back, you'll get sick and die, and He can take your life back. So I put my faith in God and in Jesus' words, the word of life. He says it is the sick who need a doctor. So, but like, if you don't, then they try to, like, you know what I mean? Then it's like, that's your choice. But you're not allowed to force things into people's bodies. That's literally called rape. Like, so that's basically what the government is doing. Like, just because you have like some irrational fear to put your faith in science and medicine and this and that instead of God, like, which you're basically, like I said, you're vulnerable to it all day. That's up to you, you know what I mean? But I put my faith in God, and I take medicine when I'm sick. I'm not going to start pumping myself full of drugs as preemptive strikes against everything that could possibly exist out there. Like, oh, like, allow people to force things into my body. I'm not a lab rat. Like, you know what I mean? Even that, I don't even know if that's right, that they do that to rats and to different animals, even though it says that God gave us animals to benefit us and to subdue them and to use them, and you know what I mean? So they are supposed to be used for our benefit, like how we eat animals, and yeah, sometimes the animals die for us to live, you know what I mean? But humans are different. We're not told to become lab rats and to not value human life and to turn human life into lab rats, you know what I mean? So, and guinea pigs. So that's my stance anyway, and that's why I don't choose. But yeah, it's like, welcome to the mental hospital. It's finally about time that people see that the world is like one giant big mental hospital. God's the doctor diagnosing everyone. He's got a lot of mental patients. That's the joke that I'm always like, I've put it in a track before, like, he's got lots of mental patients. He's being very patient, a fruit of the Spirit, because he doesn't want any of us. He wants us all to come to life and through his son, and to love, and to that way to live and share and serve in love and God and this and that. So it's like, but yeah, like, so he's being patient, but it's like he's got a whole lot of mental patience. You know what I mean? So anyway, much love. But I put, so if you have to carry a card in your pocket or pass on your phone proving you injected a drug into your body to gain access to grocery stores, receive medical care, or to freely move about society, then you no longer live in a free country and you are no longer sovereign over your own body. And that should concern everyone, because it's prophecy that's described as an evil tactic in the Bible. So that's the part that I added, which is that's why it should concern everyone. And like, concern's another name for worry, so it shouldn't worry everyone. Non-believers, it shouldn't, but like believers, like if anything, it should excite believers, because this is what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for Jesus' coming, the second coming, and we've been waiting to leave this earth to go meet up in the sky with him, and then for the whole, biblical prophecy to come true. So but yeah, so I just wanted to add that, because freedom. So I wanted to touch on the topic of freedom here. So, because this is what they seem to do a lot. And so freedom, I believe in God, love, and in service and obedience to God. Love. Who is love? Because God's love. So I believe in God, love, and in service and obedience to God, love. And I don't believe in freedom, or think that the country, world, people, and life have ever been free, except those who have been freed in God through choosing to live for God, good, love, like his son Jesus. Only those who make God, love, their master, instead of sin and money their master, are free. Because Jesus said, if you choose sin, you're a slave to sin, so you're not free. Even angels and the first humans, Adam and Eve, apparently weren't and aren't free from consequence and to disobey God and his instructions, commands. The Bible doesn't teach freedom and that we are free. It teaches that we are under God's commands, laws, words, and to be obedient and obedient to him and them, and in order to live, serve, go on living, and in life. So doing contrary leads to death. Promoting freedom is promoting rebellion. So we are not instructed to try to be free from God and away from God, but to serve and obey in God, in love, and to obey God in love. All who don't serve and obey God in love choose death for themselves. That's the gospel truth we are told and warned by God's words, and that we are warned by God about. That's the gospel truth that we are told and warned by God about, like it or not. I believe God and God's word, and in God and in God's word. I believe in service and obedience to God, not in freedom. I believe freedom is the devil's, the evils, and what they are trying to aspire and inspire us and you to crave and want, instead of God, love. I never want to be free from or away from God, love, but under him, his protection and grace. So that's the thing that I wanted to point out, is that because you see it all the time in this mainstream, they do it all the time. They promote freedom, and then they'll try to connect it to God. Meanwhile, the gospel of God has never promoted freedom, being free from God. It teaches service and obedience to God and in God. So you're not trying to be free from God and to free, and you can be free in God when you choose him, but still that's not even free, because you're choosing to serve
and obey the commands. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all. So it's so when you look at it, this is what they are always promoting: freedom. Like, look at Braveheart, and they connect them to being on the cross, and he yells out freedom, and I've done a reenactment of that at my sister's wedding as a joke, but it's just kidding around. But I mean, I didn't know at the time. I didn't think about it like this way. God didn't reveal it to me that it's that's what the devils are trying to do. They want freedom. They want freedom to be able to harm people, to do evil, to be free of consequences of doing their evils and things. And so the reason why we're not supposed to be craving and wanting freedom instead of God and obedience and service and love in God is because God is our protector and provider. So he's our protection. If we were free to do this, people would just be free to do whatever, and they'd be killing each other, and the evil would get away with whatever they want. You know what I mean? And they'd harm people, so it'd be not good. So it's that's the trick. That's why you get Freemasons, and they're trying to be free of law and free this and free country. It's a free country, and how is it free? You always work for money, this and that. That's not free. There's nothing free about it. You know what I mean? So it's and then the gospel truth doesn't preach freedom to try to be free from God. That's and free from consequence. That's rebellion. That's exactly what the devils and Lucifer and them are doing. Is they're trying to be free. They want to be free to harm and to hurt others and hurt themselves and just make stupid choices. And they want to be free to do whatever they want. You know what I mean? So then that's what God doesn't allow. So God doesn't teach freedom and allow free to be free from his consequence and his word. That's what literally we're instructed leads us to death. He told them, don't touch this tree. He's basically warned them, this is a poison tree, don't touch it. You know what I mean? It's if you came across a poison fruit tree and your dad's yo, this is my poison fruit tree, don't touch it. You know what I mean? And it's and then it makes you question, why do you have a poison fruit tree? Well, God can create whatever he wants, and he can study whatever he wants, and he can create whatever he wants. You know what I mean? But there's uses for a poison tree. You know what I mean? There's uses for certain poisons can be used as medicines and things. You know what I mean? So it's just because it's labeled poison, may be harmful to the body in ways, but if we can see that we can take substances and things that God creates, put them into different forms, and it can be useful to us. Water can turn to ice or to steam, or you know what I mean, different. So it's the same would go for a tree. You'd be this is the tree of good or evil, so it has the potential, but you know what I mean, that depending on what you do with it, it's kind of like wine, for instance. You know what I mean, or alcohol or wine, the fruit of the vine. The tree, so when you look at that, if you overindulge in wine, it can be harmful to you, and you can get alcohol poisoning. But if you control your drinking, then it can be enjoyable, and you can have a good time, you know what I mean? And it can be sanctified by God if it doesn't lead to sin. So that's the difference, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to touch on that because they're always preaching it, Teen America. You watch some of these movies, and whether these Freemasons and all these people promote, and they're all free this, free that. That's the devil. The devils want to be free from hell. They want to be free to do evil. They want to be free. So it's a trick of devils, the evils, to try to preach freedom. That's preaching rebellion, because the gospel truth of God doesn't teach freedom or to aspire to be free from God in consequence. They're there for our own good, to guide us as a guiding light. So to keep for the good, greater good and goodness of all, and of God and of love. So that and then you watch these movies Teen America, what would you do to give up? Would you give up your life for freedom? And they're all trying to convince you that go to war for freedom. there's no freedom in that. You're warring with people. That's going against commandments. You're killing and harming people. They're teaching violence again. That's a trick. You know what I mean? Oh, be a Christian soldier. Did Jesus rise up and do violence to stop those things? No, he spiritually rose up and took a stand to not be violent and to not fear it and fear violence, losing his life and this and that. And he put his faith in God instead, and then it led him to life and ascension. You know, so that's what we're to do too. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick 15 minutes, I guess, if you consider that quick. But I'll try to keep this video a shorter one. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because, yeah, like the whole freedom, free this, and Braveheart, freedom, and Freemasons, and free this, and free that. It's a word that you can see that they tend to push and use a lot, is freedom. Oh, it's a free country, and oh, we live in a free society, a free world, and this and that. Yeah, they enslave you with money and things, so it's like there's nothing free about it. You know what I mean? Like, God doesn't teach freedom. He teaches earnestness to earn by making good choices, by service. Through service, to, like, you got to work to survive. You know what I mean? You earn your living. You earn, and then it said, like, that's why Jesus said, not all those who say Lord, Lord to me will live and see heaven, but only those who do the will of the Father. And the will of the Father is to fear God, keep all his commandments, and serve in God and love. If you try to be separate from God and love and go to hurt and sin and evil, freedom, like you try to be free from consequences of your choices, and free to try to rebel against God and go against God and his word, that leads to death. So the gospel doesn't teach freedom. That is a lie, and that's a concoction of the devil, the evils. That's contrary to the gospel. It doesn't teach freedom. It teaches obedience and service in love and God. Anyway, just wanted to touch on that because I felt compelled, and and the way to there is a certain amount of freedom, but only in service and in love to God and Jesus. Then they allow you to thrive. It says that in the Bible. That's why the holy angels, the 2/3 that didn't rebel and choose evil, are free to enjoy, and they're enjoying pleasures and enjoyment because they're not trying to harm people. You know what I mean? They're not trying to harm themselves and others and God. They're being of use and of service and love. That to share. They want to share. They don't want to try to dictate over you and lord over you and steal. They're not trying to steal your decisions. You know what I mean? So it's like, and harm you and things like that. So it's like, that's what we're supposed to aspire to do too, to be of service, use, and follow love and God. And so that's definitely the way, and that's the way that Jesus chose. That's why he said the greatest among you will be the servants, because you're trying to actually serve and benefit God, his people, his creation, and it's all his creation. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. So I believe in God. I don't believe in freedom. I believe in God, and I believe that there's freedom, a certain amount of freedom, and in obedience and service to God and Jesus, and that's through choosing Jesus. Much love. Live to love, love to live. Peace. 2 J's. I mean this as sideways. I do this sideways because I don't like it to do it as the devil horn, so I do it as like for 2, and peace because I go by 2 J's. It's my initials, J Johnson, and I'm always awaiting the second coming. So and 2 is better than 1, it says in the Bible and things like that. So I'm always like, I'm always a spot, I like 2, you know what I mean? I go by 2. That's the name that God gave me because and when I look at it, like 2 witnesses, God and his son, that's 2, 2 are better than 1, all that, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's love between 2, and, it takes 2, and this and that, even though you're all can be 1 in God, so, you know what I mean? So God's described as 1, but, it's like, so I got no problem being number 2. To God. Like, I aspire to always be under God, like I said, under God, under his protection, under his grace, under his love, under his laws, as long as I'm on the earth, and then if we get permitted and granted to go to heaven for doing His will and for serving and loving, and then we get to benefit, and He will give according and reward us according to that righteousness and to what we choose. So there will be a certain amount of freedom that He will give us to do in heaven, but He doesn't give freedom to do evil. You know what I mean? He doesn't give you're not free of consequence until He removes those consequences, pain, death, all those things, because you've already proven to do His will and to love His will and His Spirit and His guidance and His Word and His law and everything, and love Him and His Son and His creation, and love sharing and serving, and good things. So anyway, that's what I do. I love God's law, and I love service and sharing. I love trying to serve and be useful. I love Jesus, and I love His Son. I love Jesus. Clearly love Jesus. I love you people. I love the world too. You know what I mean? Because you have to love the world to serve God, and you have to love God to serve people. It's both. He said, like, if you don't love your brothers, but you say you love God, you're a liar, and this and that, because it's like He created us to love and serve each other. So yeah, like that's the division sometimes, where it says like, oh, like what you gotta, like, yeah, the world itself, it's talking about like the pleasures, the fleshly pleasures and this and that. You know what I mean? You have to choose between sin and God. Like, we're earthly, fleshly reality things and God sometimes. You know what I mean? But basically He instructs us to serve His creation and to love His creation. So you're supposed to love people, love the two main commandments. Again, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love all others as yourself. So you're told to, and that's the world. So you're told to love the people of the world the best that you can. Then sometimes that takes rebuking them. It's like that. It's better to be hit with the truth than kissed with a lie. Sometimes it hurts to hear the truth. You got to tell them. Yeah, it may hurt them initially. They may think that it may, because it calls them to repentance and change. So it throws a fork in their bike spokes and their plans or whatever. You know what I mean? But in the long run, it serves and benefits them if they take to that and they listen and they realize the truth that you're telling them. That's hard to hear at first. It's not always hard. Like it says, like, God disciplines like a loving father. A loving parent disciplines their children for the good of the children. So that's what God does. He instructs you, and then if you disobey, then you learn the consequence, and you try it. And depending on our choices, and that determines the severity of how God disciplines us. So, and apparently the devils, the evils, and Lucifer and them and that, they still, even after God disciplines and rebukes them and this and that, they still don't want to turn from wickedness and their evil ways and from harming themselves and others. So they're lacking oneness with creation and with themselves and everything and with God. So they're trying to harm themselves and others. So they're choosing. That's mainly the choice, is between love and hurt. So it's between God and hurt. Good, evil. So God, which is the word God, one letter, good, and then devils, evils. It's like pretty. It's the words have been made pretty simple for us to try to grasp and understand. You know what I mean? All praise be to God and Jesus, and to God, which is love in Jesus, and love that can be in us and that can be shared in God and Jesus. And yeah, much love, peace. I encourage you to all stay strong, keep serving, and keep doing your best. I know life can be very painful, and you have to endure suffering. It can be very angering, you can become filled with lots of trauma and rage and pain. And I understand that, and I'm sure God it says He gets furious and wrathful, and the wrath of the Lamb too, of His Son and things like that. But Jesus showed us to love anyway. Just love anyway. Keep loving. Love. Forgive. There's people that hurt you and that, they they choose you like partners, then they'll commit adultery, and they change, and they don't choose you, they choose someone else, and people get wrapped up in the passion and love that they have for other people. And some people get to the point where they're like, oh, if they don't want to be with me, they're not gonna be with anyone, and this and that, and they'll throw away their own life for someone else and things like that. But by doing so, and that's not loving them, you're not proving that you love them by harming them. That's proving the opposite. You know what I mean? So you're just proving that they make the right, that they're choosing to not be with you. It was the right choice because you would harm them instead of love them. So yeah, that's what I can understand, because I've loved someone very dearly. And then had to let them go. Because they want to go down a different path, and that's their choice. So that's people have free will to choose for themselves. You know what I mean? Like that. There's freedom in choices. You know what I mean? So, but when it comes down to it, there's also consequence. So there's and earnestness and stuff like that. So. And you can't force people to choose things, and that's what evil is. They try to force their way. God allows you to, He just educates and then allows us to choose. That's what God does. So there's a certain amount of freedom in that, but there's also consequence in that, and it's for the greater good of all. So, the gospel, it preaches obedience, service, and love in God, not freedom. That's what devils are trying to do. Oh, free us. They want to be free from hell, free from consequence, free to hurt, free to cause other people hurt, free to lord over others when they're not fit to, because only God is, God is the only one who's fit to rule us. He is the ruler, and then whoever He chooses to share His throne, to be a co-regency like Jesus, we can share in that. You know what I mean? As servants, God serves us. What He chooses and does serves us, and what we do is supposed to serve and is supposed to serve God and others as well. So, and in doing so, we can be united with Him, and we get to rule in love and glory and all that too. It's shared. You know what I mean? So that's wonderful. God's a sharer, and then like the Lucifer and them they want to raise themselves above and then harm people and themselves and be free of consequence. And God does that for our protection. He's like, no, God is holy. So that's that means He's not malicious at all towards us. He wishes no harm towards us. He only disciplines us when we are choosing to try to harm Him, others, ourselves, His creation. Then we get the consequences. So a lot of times people try to blame that on God, but you chose that. So that's your choices that are bringing that upon you. You've been educated. You can choose to not harm yourself, harm others, choose sin, evil, this and that. So that's on you. That's you don't like that there's cause and effect and consequences to choices. Too bad. That's reality. So if you're trying to do things contrary to reality and contrary to God, that's delusional. Thinking that you can thrive while choosing wrong. That's just nonsense, or to that Lucifer, raise my throne. They're saying they will raise themselves higher than God and His throne. God and God's perfection, you can't become greater than perfection. That's nonsense too. So anyway, much love. Peace. It teaches freedom from evil, to try to be free from evil and from sin. So try to free yourself from that, from anything that's evil or causes you to sin. It tells you to. So the gospel does promote freedom in that way, freedom from evil, to be free from evil, devils, the evils, but not from God. Not to try to be free from away from God, but to be away from sin and evil. So freedom away from devils, you know what I mean? And the evil. So anyway, that's why you always see them trying to promote rebellion and make people feel like they're slaves, like in the Matrix. Oh, you're a slave, Neo, and all this, right? Trying to make you feel like you're a slave so that you rise up and rebel
like seek freedom, like rebellion. So like when really it says like basically the Bible testifies that Jesus sets us free, like through Jesus and through following the way of God, and Jesus is what sets us free. So the truth will set you free, kind of thing, and the truth in God and Jesus will set you free. But there's a difference between a servant and a slave. So a servant is someone who lovingly, willingly, happily, and gratefully serves. A slave is someone who is forced to. So we're supposed to be willing, loving, happy, grateful servants of God and others, not to feel like we're forced to. That's slavery. We're not being forced to. God doesn't force us to. He educates us, gives us options, and then allows us to make our choice, not free of consequences. So, I mean, it's not much of a choice when you think about it, because it's like, what's the choice? Love or hurt? You know what I mean? But that's supposed to be, that it's still a choice, but he's just trying to make it as simple as possible and a no-brainer. What do you want? To love or hurt? What do you want? Like that's supposed to be a simple one. I know I want to love, and I don't want to hurt. I would prefer love, and others to love, not hurt. So I don't see why loving them shouldn't cause you. Anyone you love, you're not trying to hurt. So yes, sin is the slaver. When we choose to sin, we become the slaver of ourselves. We are the slaver. Jesus Christ is the saver. So Jesus is very clear that not only black people and Jews have been slaves, but that everyone who sins is a slave to sin. So we're all slaves to sin until we repent and then choose not to sin and to be saved through repentance, baptism, and then living according to God's will. So when we choose to sin, we choose to be a slave to sin. So that's what Jesus testified to, and that's why you see them just constantly like, oh, you're a slave, and they want you to feel like you're a slave and like you're trapped, and that God's got you trapped, and he's this dictator that doesn't give you choice. He gives us choice. He makes it he tries to make it very plain and simple for us to, do you want to love or hurt? I know what I choose. That I thank God that he makes it that simple for me. You know what I mean? And I'm like, he's making it simple to you through me right now. I'm telling you, do you want to love or hurt? It's your option. Like, make your choice. So it's Jesus or hurting. You know what I mean? Like, that's like God or hurting, love or hurting. Like, that's not that hard to. And then, but the thing is that when you choose God and Jesus and go that way, because the world and there's these devils, and they see that you're of God and Jesus, they'll try to hurt you. And God could allow them to hurt you, and you have to endure the persecution and prove that, offer your life up as a sacrifice, like it says. You have to prove that you're willing to suffer for God. To walk the walk, pick up your cross and walk that walk, because there is an opposition and they will attack you and kill you. So in order to do what's right and serve, you have to be willing to endure that persecution and see beyond the earthly things and be like, okay, they can hurt me for a time being while I'm in the world, but then you put your faith in the resurrection, who is described as Jesus, and in God, and then you will ascend to a higher reality, which is heaven, right? So just like, as Jesus did. So that's the challenging part of being in the world and trying to overcome and see through it to the spiritual. And a lot of people say they love God and Jesus, but then when it comes down to it, it comes down to our choices will prove that. You know what I mean? Like, you can say the words all you want, but you have to walk that walk to prove it. You know what I mean? So, and that can be a lonely, painful walk that involves hurt and being hurt by devils, which that sucks, Or sometimes it could just be God testing you, and then you choose it, and you could be like 1 second from death,
and then all of a sudden he could be like, okay, rapture time, and then boom, you meet him up in the clouds. You know what I mean? So it's up to God, like whether he takes you out and like Elijah, like up in a chariot fire, like a chariot of fire, and like, okay, I can see you're overwhelmed with this, and then takes you. You know what I mean? Or if you go through the suffering like Jesus, and then he takes you. So either way, you know what I mean? He knows our heart, and so it still says he'll always uphold the righteous, and it says like riches won't save you in the day of wrath, only righteousness will deliver from death. So yeah, you may go to physical earthly death, but then you'll raise to life through the resurrection, and you'll go to eternal life. So I mean, it's like earthly life is like a blink in comparison to eternity. Like it's like nothing. It's like a speck of dust in the big picture. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, that's the choice though, and that's why I don't know. It seems like they're always trying to stir up rebellion by making people feel trapped and like slaves and this and that, instead of like as loving, willing servants who appreciate that God shares with us and educates us and then gives us those options. That's how I view God anyway. I view God as a sharer, and that I can be in him, he can be in me. I'm supposed to be in love with God, to be in love, existing in love, in God. And God's supposed to be, God, which is love, is supposed to be living in me and in us. You know what I mean? So that's how I view it. And like that's clearly what the Bible points and directs us to. Anyway, much love. So what it comes down to is being thankful for what we do know, instead of dwelling on and being angry about what we don't know yet. No, because like we can't know everything, you know what I mean? Like only God knows all, but like, and even that, like it says like God knows all type deal, but like, I mean, he knows us as far as like it says, but at the same time we're creating our character with our choices in the moment. So God can see that and witness that, so he's aware every moment of who we are and who we're becoming and what we're choosing. So, but it's not like he makes our choices for us, so he doesn't know that we're going to choose this before we choose it, kind of thing. It doesn't seem like, because like that would be saying that we don't even have a choice. You would already know, and then this is just a reenactment. Like this is just something playing out, which the Bible kind of does hint at that's what's happening. But then, so what would be the whole even point of living through it if it's already going to come to pass? And then there is no choice. So how could you have any accountability? So like there would be no responsibility and accountability. It would be like, yo, you made us like this, so how can you punish us for being like this? You already knew in advance, so why didn't you take some preemptive strike to try to help us not be like this if this wasn't your will? Which that clearly appears to be what's happening. He's trying to educate us and get us to turn away from making wrong choices, which means that he's not fully aware and in control of our choices. He's given us the free will to choose our own choices and to co-create ourselves within him. We get to create ourselves by our choices, our character, but he can create and determine. It says God determines his steps. A man can make his plans and this and that, but a God determines his steps. So it's like, because he's in control of like environment, what happens with your health, things like that. Like there's things that God's in control of, then there's things that he's not in control of, clearly, like our spirits, because like the devils, you know what I mean? It's like he's not forcing them to choose evil. He can't force them to choose evil, but he can put consequences in place to help influence them to realize and see the hurt that they're causing for themselves and others, and for him, instead of the love, sharing in love, you know what I mean? So like, but the important thing to realize is, like I said, is to be thankful for what we do know,
and where we are at as a species on this planet, and not dwell and be angry at what we don't yet know, because people are still learning things, you know what I mean? But and what it comes down to is, do you think that the current government are actually doing their best to love and serve God and his people? From what I can witness, they aren't. They clearly aren't doing their best, because they're blaspheming God's name, they're breaking his laws, they're basically, that Thomas More quote, they're influencing and teaching people to break laws, and then trying to hold them accountable for breaking those laws, when they're like, what else is to be concluded but that you're first creating lawbreakers to punish them, kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like that, like I said in other videos, like that's basically that Thomas More quote, where it's like, you know, how can you act like you're trying to benefit humanity and serve humanity and God in love when you're teaching all the wrong ways? You're promoting violence all day, and then you're shocked when kids go to violence and people go to violence. Like, that's a really shocking that you influence them towards violence when you just promoted it all day. You know what I mean? So it's like, so that's really, you're supposed to be leading by example and rebuking the evil and shunning the evil, fearing going against God, not blaspheming his name, teaching to break commandments for money and then it will get you rich and famous. Like, you're not supposed to be satanic and evil and promoting sin, and that's what they do all day. Porn and alcohol and smoking, spreading disease, and yet they have the audacity to try to claim that they're trying to stop the spread of disease and that they're have your best interest at heart and this and that. It's like, no, they're not serving God by serving all people and themselves, truly serving themselves and all others and God with love. They're serving the devil and their best interests, the evils, and have only themselves at heart. But they don't even really do that. They don't even really have their own best interests at heart, because they think their way is right because they're thriving and other people aren't. So they're oppressing people to try to thrive and exploiting people and exploiting things and stuff like that. But then eventually, like it says in the Bible, like riches will not save you in the day of wrath. Only righteousness will turn away death, type deal. You know what I mean? Like, that's basically what the scripture tells you, and the truth says is that, like, you know, you can put your faith, if you put your faith in like worldly things and riches and treasure, like, you're going to be very disappointed and you're going to go to destruction, because that's not going to save you. So it's really important to just focus on the spirit of the people that are governing, and to see, like, are they walking that walk? Do they have people's best interests at heart? Do they really love the people? Do they really love God by loving the people, and vice versa, you know? So from what I can witness, the answer is clearly and obviously a no. Or they wouldn't be pushing all the sins, the lusts, the drugs, the cigarettes, the disease-causing things, and then claiming that they're trying to heal it by selling the cures and remedies for these things, the vaccines and the drugs, and they're basically creating problems and then selling drugs and solutions to that problem. So they're trying to benefit by hurting people. You see what I'm saying? So they're creating disease and then trying to act like they're the saviors that have the cure and are going to give it to you. That's described as the Antichrist. In the Bible, it says he's going to come forward and claim like he's the solution to all these problems. Meanwhile, he's actually betraying the people in the background, and Israel and all God's people in the background. And that's what these government people and Antichrist appear to be doing. They act like they care about us. Oh, take this vaccine. Meanwhile, they're the ones who are spreading it. You know what I mean? And they've always done that. It's just like with cigarettes. Oh, cancer, like selling cancer-causing things to people, promoting smoking in movies all day, and like it's cool and all this, and then people get cancer, and then they'll sell them remedies like drugs and chemo and all these different things. Yet, for all people know, they could already have cures for those kinds of things and just be keeping it from the public. Like, and they don't even promote the actual cures, healthy alternatives and cures like healthy eating and prevention for that. You know what I mean? They don't, like THC and that there I saw the one thing about like Australia. There's a native plant where they inject it into tumors, and it's getting rid of 80% of like cancerous cells and tumors and stuff like that. Like they know these things, you know what I mean? There are things that are known that they're withholding the information, you know what I mean, from the public, so they don't have people's best interests at heart. They're not actually trying to help us and all people. They're just looking out for their pockets, you know what I mean? And they're being drug dealers, and then they're also serving devils, the evils, Satan, and things like that, trying to destroy people and bring them down, lower the population, kill them. They're not trying to lead them to life. If anything, they're trying to lead them to death. You know what I mean? It's the opposite. You can see that they're selling death-causing products, and then there's side effects even to a lot of the things that they're claiming are the cures to the problems that they're like the vaccines and do this and do this, and then there can be side effects. Then they just sell you another one, and that was an unforeseen side effect. Oh, now you need to counteract it with this and that and this and that. Like I witnessed that with my grandmother, like when I was growing up. Like my grandma had an issue where she had a mega colon, and her colon just kept growing and growing, and she had hernias in her stomach, and they just kept growing and growing and getting worse. And then the doctor realized it was from the mixtures of medications that they were giving her. They took her off the medications and let her, and then boom, it stopped growing, and it just subsided, and like she was doing better, you know what I mean? So they were literally causing the problems, you know what I mean? So it's like, so she probably should have sued them, you know what I mean? Like, but then you'd have to go to court and go through the courts and lawyers and all of the hassle of that to get your settlement and this and that. My grandma wasn't really like a money serving person. Like she didn't really care too much about it and stuff like that, you know, but I witnessed that in my grandma, you know what I mean? Like, you know, when my grandma passed away, she just passed away like a while ago, but she, like, you know, and when she passed away, like she still had this huge, like, all these hernias and mega colon. They couldn't even operate on it and stuff like that. So it's like following those doctors' advice literally made my grandmother worse. So I've witnessed that that's the problem with just blindly following and taking people's advice without really taking a good look at their spirit and knowledge and what they're actually trying to achieve, if they're actually trying to help you or if they're for you or against you or what. But like, you can witness that by witnessing and assessing the fruits of the Spirit. Are these people gentle? Are they kind? Are they loving? Are they patient? Are they God-fearing? Are they God-loving? Are they, you know, and the current government, you can clearly see, are satanic. You know what I mean? There's so much satanic. They promote Satanism and give all the money to the rich Satanists, and then they oppress the actual truth in Jesus, you know, like in God and Jesus, and they speak against him in everything. Like they use, and like it says in the Bible, they use fabricated stories to defame the truth. So they make up stories to defame the truth, such as like of Jesus, like such as Santa Claus, like a big fat man in a sleigh that clearly his name's an anagram of Satan, Santa, and then Claus can mean like the last line of a contract, so that means like Satan deal with the devil. And then they're trying to connect Jesus to the magic of Christmas, magic elves, magical fictional characters, flying reindeer in the sky, and they're trying to connect this to the Lord Jesus. Meanwhile, there's actually historic like recordings of people witnessing Jesus. And, like, there's no recordings of people witnessing a fat man flying around with flying reindeers in a sleigh. It was magic. You know what I mean? There's nothing like that. So, yeah, people still celebrate these pagan holidays and stuff. It's like, same with, the Easter Bunny. What the heck does an Easter Bunny have to do with Jesus? Coming out and hiding eggs and this and that. Rabbits don't even lay eggs. It doesn't even, like, it's just stupid. It's just stupid, made up nonsense. Trying to connect Jesus to all these, like, characters and fictional stories of this and that, you know? Like, so it's using fabricated stories to try to defame the truth about Jesus Christ and God in Jesus Christ. So, which is love in Jesus Christ and through Jesus Christ. So, yeah, so the important thing is to
assess the spirits, like the Bible tells you, test the spirits to see if they're sent from God or not. And if they're showing the fruits of the Spirit. And the way that they show that is by their works. You can see their works are evil. All in Hollywood, city of lost angels, Los Angeles. And they're selling poisons to people daily and benefiting from it. They're benefiting from selling and poisoning people and then selling cures to people, which are also poisoning people and giving them bad side effects. And then they're coming out with new variants and new things and new booster shots and new this. And it's just constant causing problems, then acting like they're the savior and saving. But they're benefiting from it all. So there's greed behind it all. And it's out of it's all out of they'll do whatever they can to try to preserve their life if they're going to get sick, but then they don't care about the public actually getting sick. You know what I mean? So they just basically oh, we got an issue, everyone get in line for this untested medicine, but they won't be the first in line. You know what I mean? That's, like I said, there's tried and tested medicines, and that they have to go through trial and error process, and during that process, you're going to crack a few eggs to make an omelet. You know what I mean? So that's I'm not trying to be the egg that gets cracked. And that's basically what it is. You know what I mean? So for people in history to learn that what snakes were poisonous, people had to get bit from those snakes. You know what I mean? And be like, yo, that's a poisonous snake. Don't go around that. Some people will still try to charm snakes, hold them in their hands, even though they know they're poisonous. So, you know what I mean? But, so all you can do is just assess the spirits, try to use your own discernment and experience from God and your knowledge to make wise choices for yourself, to be healthy and live a thriving, healthy life, to do with loving God. You know what I mean? So that's what I do anyway, but, I can see through the lies of the devils, the evils that are, they're trying to claim they're trying to benefit people. Yet you can look at their products and they're actually putting 666 in their hats, New Era hats, and Beast by Dre headphones, Beats by Dre, Fox hats equals 666, Fox equals 666, so news, Fox News, all that, that's all 20th Century Fox, that's all 20th Century 666. It's all hinting that this is the century that this end times is going to go down. It's happening. This is biblical prophecy being fulfilled right before our very eyes. Some just don't believe in the word enough to realize it, so they're all confused and stuck in the confusion and fear of it all and this and that. Meanwhile, real believers who know the scriptures and prophecies, we've been expecting this, so we're excited and we're like, yes, that means Jesus is coming soon. These are the signs. The prophecies are being fulfilled. Hallelujah, finally, Anyway, much love.
She sits alone and empty stare on mother's face she wears. Where did she go wrong? The fight is gone. Lord help this broken home.
How many hits does it take to rise? How long are you gonna hate, despise? How many pain, sadnesses, aches and cries? How much can a heart ache before it breaks and dies? How many falls does it take to rise? Really shake you guys and awake your eyes. How many times do they have to take your lives before you love the truth and hate the lies? How many songs does it take to rise? Be seen and be viewed as great and wise. Blow up and become great in size. How many do I have to make devise? How many hits does it take to rise? How long are you gonna hate, despise? How many pain, sadnesses, aches and cries? How much can a heart ache before it breaks and dies? So just address problems, offer the solution. Keep on talking your confusion. Nothing but confusion, discover the solution. Love is the solution, love and evolution. Love is evolution, JC the proper execution. Talking is amusing, so I'm talking in some music. So you rock it and you use it. Shocking, you just lose it, mock it and abuse it. I gave him my altar as a baby will crawl. Brains are too small, set the world on fire. Jesus gonna come back and rain on us all. Gave me a call and now I'm off the hook in the chain cause I fall. I put the pain to the wall, get it? I put the pain to the wall. My lyrical chased by the law. Everything feels fake as a doll. Lover just made it and make it for y'all. His love is too big, too much, and your hate is too small. I'm getting tired of trying to explain it to y'all. The king of shadow wanna eat, break a battle that can spit it at him, spit it at him. So it's sick to fathom, think about how many hits does it take to rise? How long are you gonna hate, despise? How many pain, sadnesses, aches and cries? How much can a heart ache before it breaks and dies? How many falls does it take to rise? Really shake you guys and awake your eyes. How many times do they have to take your lives before you love the truth and hate the lies? How many songs does it take to rise? Be seen and be viewed as great and wise. Blow up and become great in size. How many do I have to make devise? How many hits does it take to rise? How long are you gonna hate, despise? How many pain, sadnesses, aches and cries? How much can a heart ache before it breaks and dies? Sure as the herd plays, the world strays. My every word praise that I spit in your face. All my word plays deserve praise. I'm trying to help you change your ways before the world breaks. As the world lacks to act and the world prays, the world blaze, fall like the world trades. I'm trying to open doorways to earth's space, not move at the earth's pace. Not just trying to get in a girl's face to first base, hotter than the earth's base. I'm trying to change the earth's ways, get rid of the earth's waste. Cursed days, worst case, make us all first place, not the worst race. I preach check it before the way you teach wreck it. Each record, love God and yourself first to love each second. Everything's shit, everything's made of shit, but that doesn't mean you should be trying to wipe it out and be hating it like Satan, kid. You should appreciate and thank God and Jesus for how great He did love making it. You shouldn't be against anyone or be against your health. To be against anyone is to be against yourself. How many hits does it take to rise? How long are you gonna hate, despise? How many pain, sadnesses, aches and cries? How much can a heart ache before it breaks and dies? How many falls does it take to rise? Really shake you guys and awake your eyes. How many times do they have to take your lives before you love the truth and hate their lies? How many songs does it take to rise? Be seen and be viewed as great and wise. Blow up and become great in size. How many do I have to make devise? How many hits does it take to rise? How long are you gonna hate, despise? How many pain, sadnesses, aches and cries? How much can a heart ache before it breaks and dies?
I gotta find myself, gonna find it now. I gotta be a man, I gotta find him now. I gotta be a man, I gotta be the man. I gotta find myself, gonna find it now. I gotta be a man, I gotta find him now. I gotta be a man, I gotta be the man. Won't you leave me alone? Or leave me alone?
I'm the one posting the proof, too close to the truth, who rose to the roof, know who's a goof, that go ham on the whole program like no man, till everyone like, oh damn, gotta be the man, see and believe I can, take down a hook like Peter Pan, beat the man, so hot, need a fan, people can be evil and evil can have a lethal plan, so I leave and ran, I gotta disrespect the evil that infect the people, to protect the people, project their lethal. The lost angels in Los Angeles, all the Hollywood demons in disguise, teaching, preaching, and pushing evil on you guys, acting like if you do things illegal you will rise, speaking all those lies, acting like it's cool for people to get high. They don't want you people to get by. So
Find myself, gonna find it now. I gotta be a man, I gotta find him now. I gotta be a man, I gotta be a man. They wanna take me down, wanna see me crawl. I gotta be a man, I gotta find him now. I gotta be a man, I gotta be the man. Won't you leave me alone? Or leave me alone?
cause they're insane, trying to hurt God. Jesus, people keep us hurting, oppressed and in pain. Why do you think every so-called star is always taking his name in vain? Evil in vain, with Satan trying to make him reign. They sin gain, think following Satan is wise, hating is nice, trying to create our demise. Snakes in disguise, you're taking their lies, they're raping your guys, taking your lives and breaking your minds. You'd be better off to just break your device, not take their advice. They'll have you paying the price. You're loving hard, they're working on making it ice. Shake them like spice, awakening Christ. See through them all, so this is how I gotta be through them all. I'm loving like I can see through the wall. Got nothing but bluffing people to call. I don't follow their shit. Wish all them would quit, and wish all you would quit following it.
I gotta find myself, gonna find it now. I gotta be a man, I gotta find him now. I gotta be a man, I gotta be a man. They wanna take me down, wanna see me crawl. I gotta be a man, I gotta find him now. I gotta be a man, I gotta be the man.
JD Rome on the
You're too wrong for me lately. I love, but you hate me. I'm too good for you, baby. I'm saying
JD Rome on the beat.
you're too wrong for me lately. I love, but you hate me. I'm too good for you, baby. I'm saying you're too crazy. When you gone, it don't faze me. I won't stay, you can't make me. You just hate, cause you hate me. I'm just saying you're too crazy.
You came and you saved me, but through pain to make me. You said love who hate me. You came and you made me more. You came and you saved me, but through pain to make me. Who said if you crazy? You came and you made me
Kills me
more.
when I think about it now. It just hurts when I think about it how it isn't what it used to be. It used to be you and me usually, but now that we're gone, who is he, who is she, and why is it so hard to agree for you and me? You to see, you and me and you to be, go together like pea and poo and pea. That's what we can do, you see, when we are in unity.
You came and you saved me, but through pain to make me. You said love who hate me. You came and you made me more. You came and you saved me, but through pain to make me. Who said if you crazy? You claim to love who hate me more. You came and you saved me, but through pain to make me. To claim love who hate me. You came and you made me more. You came and you made me, but through pain to make me. Who said if you crazy? You came and you made me more.
Think for yourself. Love to live, live to love. Make the right decision for yourself. Forever.
Look to God, cause He can save you. Reach to God, cause He can save you. Speak to God, cause He can save you. Believe in God, cause He can save you.
You're here to save you like Jesus Christ. Cause I am, we are, and He's the life. We don't need to fight. He's so bright, He's the light. He's the truth, He's the right. He's the love that we need in our life. Jesus, be us, He's us. Open up your eyes, search your heart. See us, sees us. If we believe Him, He believes us. We need Him, He needs us to save us from this cold ice age. He frees us, begging you to choose love, please us. In God we trust.
He just give us a choice, but choose right we must. Spell out God's us, so see Jesus. Jesus eases pain and suffering. Please him, ease him. He ease us. The devil present, government evil has us locked up, slaves to money. The keys us. What's more important, money or your soul burning, smoking for all Jesus, eternity. We is us. We're the seeds. He reigns as the sunshine on our family. He helps us grow the trees. Us. He's such a good, great Lord. With him life's a breeze, such a breath of fresh air. We breathe him. He breathes us. We grieve him. He grieves us. Save you, saves and saved me. Saves us when evil sees us. He has the power. He's the master of the heavens, universe, earth, the seas. Plus, here's the saddest cries, maddest guys, satisfies the saddest eyes. Doesn't help the baddest, maddest, saddest guys, telling the maddest lies. Helps you, he's the dad that drives away the devil's got the clubs and just tease us, tempts us and tries to control us and keep us living in fear by using it as leverage. Loving good words and actions, these use these trust. Please trust to God, Jesus. Cause you'll never meet, never see. There's never been a God so true. Respecting, loving yourself, all others, and God isn't really that hard to do. It's all in your mind. You all see what I say is true. See and come to know God all in your time.
Look to God, cause he can save you. Reach to God, cause he can save you. Speak to God, cause he can save you. Believe in God, cause he can save you.
Whether in this life or when you die, he can see and to speak to your heart, and he knows when you lie. He knows how much you love and care, and he sees all, knows all, and knows when you cry. He knows an excuse when he hears it. He knows the truth. He knows when you try. He's great and he doesn't like when you're hating. Not even Satan. He's got a lot on his plate and he's waiting for you to choose right. Choose him, choose love. You serve him, don't serve the devil. Your soul don't serve you. I have and I'll have a lot of haters, cause they know deep down in their heart every word's true. They don't understand or they're scared to face the truth. I let you know, but I don't have to. I do cause I believe you deserve to. No, I'm not trying to scare anyone, offend anyone, force anyone into believing, make you feel inferior, wrong, or hurt you. I tell you cause I have love for all God's people, even the misguided ones who have sold their souls can be saved and redeem themselves. Look to God, self-control, mind over matter, love to live to love. We need to start treating ourselves with more respect and each other. Start loving our lives, stop sinning, and start making God proud. One man's patriot is another man's terrorist. One man's hero is another man's villain. Dancing on the beat depends on your point of view. There's only one thing you need that you already have in life, and that's love.
This is the Father, why? This is not a lie, dogma. I am God's son, God or not a guy. The real true God, real man is here in my heart to do more than rap, so cheer, have no fear. We're all the same, all walk through death's door, life's door. I've never liked war, that's what I write for, to show you that our life's more, what our life's for. To live to love, love to live, God give to love, love to give the poor bread. What's going on in your head? Don't put a horse head in your bed, end up in war debt for someone stacking up more bread. Your bread aiming at your forehead, to your dead, yours bled, sore red. War against terrorism, war is terrorism. Starting a war with war doesn't solve anything. When you'd rather be at home with your man adoring your girl, fucking loving instead of being in a war with the world. The circle of life, the circle is great. Stop before we all die, end up a never-ending circle of hate. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Don't hate and worry, better safe than sorry. Say your story, say you're sorry. Every day is mine and God's day of glory. Don't go to war, life's already too hard. Fruit bar like you are, few are enjoying the dream in their new house, new car. Most are broke, going 2 bars, hating each other, taking this shit way too far. Under pressure, dive into the core, dive into the war. Got rhymes galore, rhyme some more, so sick they can't find a cure. Think till their mind is sore.
show you what my mind is for. The people dying poor, iron sore that can't find a store. Starved, thirsty, dying war, don't even know what they're dying for. So the rich people can buy some more. Go find some more, find some ore, find some whore. Fuck them till their spine is sore. Imagine like minus hate, minus war. An eye for an eye, everyone is blind in war. So before we're extinct, just bone like the dinosaurs. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Real predators in that head of yours. I'm thinking ahead of yours, getting head indoors, not in bed with whores. Loving, feeling mine instead of yours. Thinking of all the time and money we waste and spend on wars, spend in stores. When it rains, when it pours, getting doors. Love and hate's a fine line, I'm getting mine, I hope you're getting yours. Don't get in wars, not getting poor. Can't stop, too busy, getting more. Put your time into something productive instead of war. You can see people lose their head in war, dead in war. A great disaster's what you're heading for. If you get in war, so they're alive and rich, you're dead and poor, dead in war. Trying to settle scores, many war. I hope there's not many more, so I don't have to be here. Keep talking, telling you to love anymore. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more.
You only hurting yourself. 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 You only feeling yourself. You only killing yourself. You only feeling yourself. You only killing yourself. You only feeling yourself. You only killing yourself. 'Cause you only feeling yourself. You only killing yourself.
Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. Stop your hating, fighting, arguing in war. Bullshit, hurting, suffering unless you want more. 'Cause you're only going to war with yourself, hurting yourself.